Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. Welcome back to the channel. It is the game preview. Nottingham Forest versus Everton tomorrow evening, 5:30 kickoff on a Saturday. Another televised game for the Toffees, this time coming up against Nottingham Forest. They currently sit 15th in the Premier League table, 3 wins, 4 draws and 6 defeats on 13 points. If you're wondering why I'm smiling and smirking looking at that Premier League table, it's because I'm just looking at the fact that they sit fairly comfortably, 13 points from 13 games, 3 wins. If they're to win tomorrow, I think that pretty much takes Nottingham Forest away from the relegation zone. Now, by that, what I mean is not takes them away literally from the relegation zone, because they're already, out of it by 9 points, 8 points at this current moment. They'd obviously go 11 points away from the relegation zone if they were to win. But what I mean by that is I don't think they'd have any fear of going down this season if they are to win tomorrow, because I think that gap just becomes too big. And that was exactly the same conversation as I was having after the game against Crystal Palace when Everton come back and won 3-2. I sat here on the live stream a couple of days later and I said I think that result pretty much takes us far enough away from the relegation zone to not be caught and for those two teams to not catch that gap. I'm not saying that those teams in the relegation zone, obviously at the time Luton, Burnley, I think Sheffield United were in it, I'm not saying that they won't get 13 points this season, because they probably will end up with 20s, maybe low 30s if they're lucky, but I don't think they're good enough to bridge a gap of 13, 14, 15 points. And that was exactly where Everton were. And to see Nottingham Forest sitting in that position, relatively comfortable with less wins than Everton, is quite frustrating when you think, of how poorly we've been done over by this corrupt, horrible organisation that unfortunately we have to play in every single week. But it is what it is. Everton have appealed the 10-point deduction today, and that process is now completely underway. We'll wait and see what the outcome of that is. I believe it will be a different board who will be hearing the appeal to the one that originally gave Everton the 10-point deduction, which is great news, because why would the same appeal board, be in control of it as the one that, gave the points deduction in the first place? So we'll wait and see what the outcome of that is. I dare say we probably won't hear for a number of weeks, because they'll have to sit down and go through everything all over again and try and hopefully come to the conclusion that Everton were harshly done by, and the rule that was broken did no way, shape or form warrant a 10-point deduction. And then obviously we can go from there then, depending on how many points we get back, if any. Personally, what I think they should have done is not taken the 10 points away from us until the appeal process was completed, because it adds an unnecessary amount of pressure on the players. It adds an unnecessary amount of pressure on the manager as well. Both of those groups, whom the management team and the playing staff have absolutely no responsibility for what has happened at the football club over the last couple of years, and it isn't their fault, that Everton's finances have been managed so poorly, and they are the ones being punished. There's 3 key components of Everton Football Club that are being punished for the FFP breach: the fans, the manager and the players. And all 3 of those components of this football club had no involvement in any form of financial situation at Everton Football Club. So we actually are being punished for the mistake of people that have already left the football club and will now be sat, on a beach somewhere with their massive payout, enjoying themselves. So yeah, that apparently that is the Premier League's way of making sure that everything is fair for every club, and that the Premier League is all about sustainability. Yeah, all right. Anyway, there's a game of football to be played tomorrow evening. We obviously all know how disappointing the game against Manchester United was. Massive thank you to everybody that watched the review to that game. I'm aware that it probably was a little bit frustrating to watch, because I had absolutely no voice. For those wondering how I'm doing, my voice is back, as you can tell, but I have now got a swollen lymph node or a swollen gland or something like that, and the pain in the right side of my neck is absolutely ridiculous. It's difficult to swallow, it's difficult to eat, it's difficult to do anything. So my voice is returned. but unfortunately at the expense of one of my lymph nodes. And as you can see, the skin infection on my face is still at large. So yeah, we're getting there. We are getting there. I'm glad to have my voice back because I can finally sit down and do some videos and do some content and do some talking and ultimately do what I love to do. This is my hobby. This is my passion. This is something that I look forward to doing constantly every day. And to be sat down for the last 3 days not being able to do it because I've not been able to talk has been incredibly frustrating. So I'm good to be back. I'm glad to be back. Sorry, that's probably good to be back. Probably not the right phrase, but I'm glad to be back, and hopefully we'll be sitting here tomorrow evening with something really, really positive to talk about. But like I said, there is a game of football to be played. Nottingham Forest away from home, as I said earlier, they sit 15th in the Premier League table, 13 points from 13 games. Their last few results, obviously they were beaten 3-2 by 10 men Brighton last time out, last weekend. That was at the City ground, beaten by West Ham away from home the week before that. Last time they won was a 2-0 win against Aston Villa at the City ground on the 5th of November. Really positive result for them then against a big, a really sort of impressive Aston Villa side at the moment. Lost to Liverpool before that, draw with Luton, draw with Palace, draw with Brentford, lost to Manchester City, draw with Burnley, lost to Chelsea, beat Chelsea away from home, which was a huge result for them as well, and lost to Burnley in the EFL Cup. So in terms of their home form, they haven't got brilliant home form in recent weeks and months. As I said, their last win coming on the 5th of November. Before that, you've got to go back some time to find the last time they won at the City ground. But we all know this is an incredibly difficult place to visit. I was there in the flesh last season when we drew 2-2 there, a game that we absolutely should have won, a game that we were the better team in, a game that we were in control of for large parts of it, and unfortunately through probably a lack of confidence and a lack of ability to see a game out, we ended up drawing that game. Obviously, Brennan Johnson, who's no longer at Nottingham Forest, scored a really good goal on that day. But they have made another impulsive summer's worth of bringing players in, a number of recognisable faces that are now at Nottingham Forest applying their craft that obviously weren't necessarily there last year. They obviously brought in something like 22 players the season prior. So a lot of changes at that football club at the moment, like Anthony Elanga in there, of course, ex-Manchester United, doing well at the moment, performing well there. Matt Turner, of course, ex-Arsenal goalkeeper. They've got Awani, who I think is a fantastic player and definitely somebody that Everton will have to keep an eye on tomorrow. Obviously, we know the likes of Ibrahim Zamgare, Origi, who, the less said about that man, the better. We spoke on Tuesday about Anthony Martial's absolute desire to score against Everton. Every time he walks on that pitch, it seems like that fella scores against Everton every single time he plays against us, and there's a number of players that fit within that bracket of players that just constantly seem to score against Everton, but nobody else. As I said, Anthony Martial is in there. There's a number of players within that. Gabriel Jesus, I think, is in there as well, and unfortunately Divock Origi is in there. Obviously, they've got the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White, a lot of Premier League proven players that have got quality there, and all with one similar attribute or one similar task for me, and that is proving themselves. Anthony Elanga, somebody that obviously got quality, obviously got talent, but couldn't quite make it at arguably the biggest club in the world, now wants to go and prove himself. Morgan Gibbs-White moved there, big money, wants to prove himself. Callum Hudson-Odoi, somebody else who was at a massive club playing in Europe, couldn't quite do it, wants to prove himself. So they've got a lot of talent there, and they've got a lot of players that Everton should be worried about. Obviously, Steve Cooper, the manager, somebody that's been there for a long time, knows the club inside out, and definitely knows what those players and what system they're best performing in. So it will be a difficult day for the Blues tomorrow. I think the most positive thing going into this, and the best thing for us to look at, is the fact that we're away from home. We obviously have been much better away from home this season than we have been at home. Sean Dyche seems to get it right almost every time we go on the road, whereas at Goodison Park, I think it's not quite the same. We've put a couple of good performances in at home this season, but more so we've not quite got it right. I think certain players perform much better away than what they do at home. Abdoulaye Doucouré being one of them, who I think is much more suited to the system we play away from home, much more suited to the way we play away from home as well. So, yeah, I think we can take a positive out of that one. Forest are an unbelievable side. They were below Everton before. Obviously, we had the points deduction, 14 points. They obviously currently sit on 13 points. So, they were below Everton. And obviously, Everton had an extra game to play. And I do still, firmly believe that had we have not had that 10-point deduction, I think we would have won. Against Manchester United, because what I saw against Manchester United was a side that were panicking, was a side that seemed like they were a little bit fed up, seemed like they felt a little bit sorry for themselves. And I know we've had multiple players come out over the last couple of weeks or so. Amadou Onana's come out today and said the focus hasn't changed, etc., etc., etc. And I know the manager's come out and said, the atmosphere within the dressing room hasn't changed. But I just can't believe that. Personally, I just can't sit here. As a fan of this football club, knowing how much it's affected me and every other fan of this football club, I cannot sit here and say that those players will have just gone, oh yeah, whatever, don't worry about it, let's move on. Of course it will have affected them. They've just been through 2 years of horrific relegation battles, of a horrific time in the history of this football club for many reasons, on and off the pitch. And we were now finally in a good bit of form, working hard, winning games, no real fear of relegation, everybody in a great mood, the players, the fans, the manager, all working on the same page. And to be hit with that and almost taken right back to where we were a year ago, it's bound to have had an effect on them. And I think in that second half you could tell that it had an effect on them. This again is another huge game of football, one that didn't necessarily need to be a huge game of football, but is because of that 10-point deduction. And the reason I say that is because if Forest does a win tomorrow, then they go 16 points, which would put them above Wolves at this point in 12th position. But more importantly, 16 points would be 12 points above Everton. It should only be 2 points above Everton, but it'd be 12 points above Everton. Is it realistic to assume that Everton will be able to make up a 12-point gap between now and the end of the season? I understand we're only in December. I understand there's still a lot of football to be played, but a 12-point gap is a huge gap at any point in the table. If there's a team at the top of the league with a 12-point gap at Christmas, you sort of look and go, do you know what? They're more than likely going to win the league title. Obviously, that's changed with Manchester City, and their dominance over the last few years. But my point is, Nottingham Forest, who would then be sat sort of somewhere between 12th and 15th, 16th, would be, in my opinion, an unattainable goal for Everton to reach that, which would effectively confirm that Everton will be in some form of relegation battle this season. And I'm not saying we will be relegated this season, but I also don't agree with this whole notion of Everton should accept the 10-point deduction and be happy with it because they'll stay up anyway this season because this team's worse than them. Yes, there is. Burnley, Burnley as good of a side as Everton on paper? Absolutely not. Neither are Sheffield United, neither are Luton, neither are Bournemouth, and I don't think Forest, Fulham and Palace are either. However, relegation battles and the 3 teams that go down, although it very literally is the 3 worst teams in the league because it's the 3 teams that have performed the worst, it's not necessarily the 3 worst squads in the league. And that has been proven a number of times over the years. And even last season, did Leicester have a worse squad than Forest, Bournemouth, Everton even? I would go as far as to say Leicester's starting 11 quality-wise and ability-wise was better than Everton's last season. Players like Maddison in there who, of course, have gone on to play, at Tottenham, who are doing well this season. Harvey Barnes, of course, gone on to play at Newcastle. Definitely, I think they definitely had a better side than Bournemouth and the likes Forest. However, they couldn't perform. They were in the worst form. Other teams got a bit of confidence, started to put a few good results together, and Leicester couldn't do it, and Leicester ultimately went down and were relegated. So it's not necessarily the 3 absolute worst teams in the league in terms of the 3 worst squads go down. It's the 3 worst performing teams, and that means that there's every chance Everton could be in another relegation battle this season after the 10-point deduction because of how much that will have affected the mentality, how much that will have affected the feeling around the squad. Ultimately, as silly as this sounds, I think there's only one thing Sean Dyche and these players can do. Now, and it's win a game of football. And you might be looking and thinking, Cam, why are you talking? What are you talking about? Obviously, the best thing to do is win a game of football. But what I mean by that is the longer it goes on, not winning, the longer the weeks go on where Everton haven't won post the points deduction, the more pressure there is going to be. The more emotion is going to be in it, the more worry, the more stress, the more anxiety, the more those players are going to feel it. If Everton turn up tomorrow and win this game, which we can, by the way, because we went to Palace and won, we went to Brentford and won, we went to West Ham and won, absolutely every chance we go to Forest tomorrow and win. Forest haven't got a great record at home this season. Then automatically that puts us on 7 points. Now, I don't know who Burnley and Sheffield United are playing this weekend, but I can't see either of them winning. So automatically we go above both of those sides and 2 behind Luton. Now, who have Luton got this week? Luton have got Brentford away tomorrow, so I can't see Luton winning either. So on the auspices that Everton win tomorrow, Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United lose, we go a couple of points behind Luton and a couple of points away from being out that relegation zone. All of a sudden, the next game, you're thinking, right, okay, another win and we're out of this, and we start to climb the table again. If Everton lose tomorrow, then as I said, that number, 16 points from 4, that gap of 12 points, all of a sudden seems unattainable. I'm not saying it is, because there's still a lot of football to be played, but it just seems too big of a gap to breach, and that is where the panic and the stress and the worry starts coming in. So there is an awful lot of pressure, and as I said, the sooner Everton win a game of football, the better, because the sooner we can put the points deduction behind us and move on. Whilst we haven't won, it's still looming over our heads as to the fact that we haven't won a game since the points deduction. Is this affecting the mentality? Is this affecting where Everton, how Everton players are feeling, the fans' anxiety, etc., etc.? So we just need to win a game, and hopefully that game is tomorrow, because it needs to be sooner rather than later. We all thought it would be last week. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work like that. But we know Everton are a much better side away from home than what they are at home, and this will be difficult. And if I'm being honest, I could see this game being a draw, because I think both teams are very, very similar in terms of their quality. Pardon me, in terms of their quality. In terms of player for player, man for man, I think both teams are very similar in very similar situations. But obviously the goal is to go out and win, and if Everton could win tomorrow, I think it would be absolutely massive. We know we've got a couple of injuries going into this one. The manager had his pre-game press conference earlier on in the week. He confirmed that Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Amadou Onana have been training away from the rest of the group as they recover from injuries. Andre Gomez is back training with the squad, and Beto is back training as well. So the availability of DCL and Onana is still very much up in the air. We'll wait and see whether either of those two are available to start. But yeah, this is a huge game for me. A huge game, and as I said, I went into Palace, despite the fact that we hadn't beat Palace away from home for however many years, despite the fact that we typically don't do great at Selhurst Park. I went into Palace thinking, do you know what, we can win this game. And I think the players went in with a very similar, not we can win this game. I went into Palace with the mentality, we will win this game. And I think the players went in with a very similar mentality as well. And I think had we have not had that points deduction, I think I'd be going into tomorrow thinking we'll win this game comfortably. Forest aren't that great. They've struggled at home this season. We'll win today. Whereas now I'm sort of hoping we win, as opposed to being confident that we'll win. And that's because, as I said, I just think that this points deduction has hit everybody at the football club, fans, players, manager, everybody involved with this football club. It's hit it like as I said on Tuesday, like having a ball volleyed at you from point blank range in the bollocks. It's taking the wind right out of our sails. And whilst the objective remains the same, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's been no impact from this. There has been an impact, and I think we can all see that. So yeah, it will without doubt be a difficult game of football, and I think if Everton can come through this one with a win, it would be a huge win. Definitely our biggest of the season, because of what we'll have been. We'll have come through. We'll have ultimately come through the anxiety and the pressure that having 10 points taken off you unnecessarily and unfairly brings. So yeah, let's get into our predicted starting 11 then. As always, the predicted starting 11 brought to you by Fan Hub, get down in the description down below. Go and join Fan Hub. It is completely free. If you use the code THE-UBP, you'll get on completely for free. Follow us over there at the Mighty Blues. We'll be following everybody back, trying to build a community over there. You can do loads on Fan Hub. You earn points. The more points you earn, you can exchange them for rewards such as hoodies, t-shirts, caps, or even pints of lager in your local boozer. So go over there, give it a check out. You only have to do things like predict games, predict your starting 11, etc., to earn points. So let's get straight into it then. In terms of the formation, because I know there's a couple of people that watch these previews that aren't quite happy with the formation that is set on FanHub. As I said, it's set automatically. I don't set it. It's probably going to be something more like... Oh, I've just put Andy Lonergan in at right wing there. Ignore that. Left wing, sorry. It's probably going to be something more like that, isn't it? So we'll go with that. Jordan Pickford in goal, of course. Could he have done better for any of Manchester United's goals? Well, one was a world-class overhead kick that will probably win goal of the season. One was a penalty, and one was a Anthony Martial staple. So no, probably not. His distribution wasn't great last week. Hopefully he can improve that. And but yeah, look, Jordan's the number one goalkeeper, and Jordan starts every week. So not much point having a discussion about that. Left back, I'm gonna go with Vitaly Mykolenko. Not as not as impactful last week against Manchester United as he has been in recent weeks. Obviously, we've praised Vitaly Mykolenko an awful lot over the last sort of 5-6 weeks or so, especially before the international break, before the points deduction. I think he was absolutely phenomenal. His one-on-one defending has improved drastically. His forward play has improved massively as well prior to that international break. Scored 2 goals in 2 games, very nearly had 3 goals in 2 games as well. He's been absolutely fantastic recently. I don't think he was bad by any sense of the imagination against Manchester United. I just don't think he was as involved as what he usually is. I don't think he was as as positive as what he usually is. So hopefully we see him back to his best tomorrow, because we could do with it. We really, really could do with it. Obviously at centre back, I'm going to go with Jared Branthwaite and James Tarkowski. Again, neither of them particularly impressive against Manchester United. I thought they both struggled at times, especially when defending their counter attacks. I think we really struggled defending counter attacks against United. It probably won't be the same tomorrow, because we won't perform in the same way as we did last week, and I don't think Forest will perform like Manchester United did. I think it will be more the opposite. I think we'll be the team defending and counter-attacking, as opposed to being the team attacking and trying to defend the counter-attack. And that is typically the way it goes away from home as well. So, and I do think we're more suited to that. I do think we're better playing in that system and that style. So, yeah, I'm going to go with those two. Again, as I said, not massively impressed with them against United, but they've been absolutely fantastic prior to that, and I don't think either of them deserve taken out for one game. Right back then, I'm going to go with Seamus Coleman. Obviously, Ashley Young, again, a fault for a couple of things last week. I'm not going to sit here and talk too much about him, because I don't just want to sit here and rant about how bad the player has been. But one thing I will say is Ashley Young needs taken out of this team now. Ashley Young needs taken out, whether it's Patterson who comes in, whether it's Seamus who comes in. Obviously, Seamus back to fitness now. I don't really mind, but Ashley Young cannot continue starting games of football forever. No problem with him being there, no problem with him being a squad player, no problem with him coming on with 10 or 15 minutes to go to provide us with a bit of pace and a bit of freshness, but starting games for Everton, he's shown numerous times this season that he isn't capable of doing it, and he isn't reliable enough for us to be able to put him in there. So yeah, I am going to go with Seamus. Probably slightly unfair on Patterson, because he does deserve his opportunity, and he is the future, I think, at the moment, certainly. Whether or not he remains the future, or whether we go and buy another right back, we'll wait and see. But currently at the football club, he is the right back, I think, that is seen as the one for the future. And he ain't going to be that unless he's given opportunities, and he isn't going to be that unless he's given a chance in the squad. But given the importance of this game, given how big it is, given the fact that we really need to win it, I think I'm going to go with Seamus, because I just think he's the most reliable out of the three. So, yeah, there you go. Midfield 2 then, I'm going to go with... Where are we? James Garner in there next to... Where is he? Is this a Garner guy? Obviously, as we've just said, Onana currently training away from the rest of the squad with Dominic Calvert-Lewin as they recover from their injuries. We obviously saw Onana not involved last week and come off the last time he was involved a couple of weeks ago. Returned from international duty early. Yeah. I think we might see him on the bench this week, as opposed to obviously not in the squad at all, like he was last week, or like he wasn't last week, should I say. But I'm not quite sure we'll see him start. I think if we were to see him start, the manager would have come out yesterday and said he's back, he's in training, everything's okay. He's fully recovered. The fact that he said he's training away from the squad says to me that he's not quite fully there, and he may only be fit to make the bench. So yeah, same midfield again, Garner Gay. James Garner. Hopefully Garner Gay has more impactful performance away from home. He tends to be more impactful away from home because the way we play away sort of suits his style more so than the way we play at home. But he needs to be better than what he was last week, because I just wasn't particularly impressed with him last week. Same with James Garner, to be fair, wasn't particularly impressed with him either. And I expect a lot more from them. Obviously, further forward in that number 10 role, we're going to go Abdoulaye Doucouré. Again, typically much better away from home than what he is at home, much more impactful away from home than what he is at home as well, and hopefully we see more of him this week, because again last week just not enough, didn't do enough, didn't produce enough, just not enough. Wingers then, this one's really difficult. I'm going to go with left side first because I think it's easier to pick. Dwight McNeil. Now, do I think Dwight McNeil and Jack Harrison have been particularly good of late? No. I am actually going to change the right winger, and I'm going to go with Danjuma. Now, I know he come on against Manchester United and he didn't produce anything. I know, the times that he's played of late and the times that he's come on or he started in, I think he started in the cup game up front against Burnley, didn't he? He's not really done anything. He's not really produced. But I also think Jack Harrison has been terrible recently. I really do. I think he has one or two moments in a game, and other than that, I really think he's been poor. So I'm not completely opposed to taking Jack Harrison out and giving Danjuma a go. Saying to Danjuma, you complain about not playing. We understand that 10 minutes at the end of a game isn't necessarily great. You're starting this one. Go and show me what you can do. Go and prove your quality. Go and prove your ability. I'm not saying he will, but if he doesn't, you've always got Jack Harrison to come off the bench then. I do think Dwight McNeil will start on the left because lack of options, and I don't think he will change both of them. I think probably Jack Harrison will start on the right as well, but for me, I just wouldn't mind seeing a change there because I don't think either of them have been particularly great recently. And then up front, I'm going to go with Beto on the same logic as the Onana stuff. The fact that the manager said yesterday that Dom is training away from the squad due to, an injury. Maybe he will be on the bench. Maybe he'll be given a rest for this one. I think the last thing Sean Dyche will want is a not 100% Dominic Calvert-Lewin being risked in a game when you've got a striker there who missed last week but is now back and available. And I think it'd be a good opportunity for Beto to start and prove himself as well. Super sub. If you select the first player that comes off the pitch, comes on off the bench, you'll get an extra point. I'm going to go Ashley Young because he loves Ashley Young, and it just wouldn't surprise me if he did everything he can to get Ashley Young on this pitch tomorrow. So there you go. Save that one. I'll get that shared on social media later, as well as all of yours. Don't forget, go and follow us over there at the Mighty Blues. Huge shout out to FanHub for getting involved with the channel. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the preview. This will, without a doubt, be a difficult game. It will be a difficult afternoon. I don't expect Everton to turn up and wipe the floor with Forest. I don't expect this one to be a comfortable win. Do I think we can win? Yes. What I don't want to be doing is sat here at 7 o'clock tomorrow talking about a game of football that we should have won, that we haven't won, because, of nervousness or not taking our chances or making silly mistakes, in the back line, which we've done numerous times before when Everton have been in pressurised situations. We've had to talk about games that we should have won that we haven't won. Hopefully that's not the same tomorrow. Hopefully we can go out tomorrow, we can put a performance in, we can completely forget about the points deduction, because as much as people might want to say it, I don't think they did forget about the points deduction against Manchester United. Hopefully we can forget about that points deduction now, and just move forward and go and get what would be a huge 3 points tomorrow. And it would, by the way, it would be a massive 3 points. So Here's hoping, eh? We'll wait and see. We will obviously be back with the instant match reaction and the player ratings straight after the game, so don't forget to look out for those. Hit the subscribe button if you are new as well. That would mean a huge amount to me. Please do subscribe, because we are aiming to get towards 9,000 subscribers, so if you could subscribe, that would be amazing. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. That would be brilliant as well. And yeah, up the toffees, F the Premier League. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you after.